My name is Jed Lighthizer. I'd just like to set the stage here for the next topic we have. The year is 2020. We are talking about enterprise technology priorities. We have distinguished guests here today, two CIOs. There's a lot on CIOs' plates these days. There's a lot that we think about as investors, as we think about as founders. Priorities such as artificial intelligence, automation, the cloud, cybersecurity. And I'm really curious to hear how these CIOs are able to juggle these priorities, how they work with startups, and how they allocate dollars. So really excited to hear what we have today. I think what I'll do here is just turn over to Muddu in a second. For those that don't know, Muddu is an investor, he's an entrepreneur. He's been a senior executive, sold a lot of companies, Caspida, for instance, to Splunk. Also been an executive at places like VMware. He holds many hats, but I think what he does best is monitoring panels. So with that note, I'll turn it over to Muddu, and thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Jed. Are you guys ready for today? I know the last panel was good, but I got to be better than them. No hats to Sumant, but I think I want to do much more lively. So here I'm expecting you guys to interact with us, right? So I want you guys to ask questions. You have great two CIOs. Steve, I'm going to introduce you from Western Digital. Prakash, Autodesk CIO. So the priorities today is, again, where to make money, where to invest. So these guys are buying a lot of services and products. And what is off limits? Don't talk about Cisco. The guy was in that panel. Cisco is gone. No Cisco, no Oracle, no SAP, no hardware stuff, right? So you want to focus on hardware or software. I don't mind new hardware. Western Digital is a new hardware. You want to focus on that. So think about where they're investing in, what should we drive the investments, where is the next growth will be, where are they investing in 2020, how does coronavirus will impact your spending, their spending, and our spending, right? So it's all about 2020 and beyond. So with that, I'm going to first let them introduce a few sentences. Prakash?
Sure. Thank you for having us. I'm Prakash Kota, I'm CIO for Autodesk. And for those who don't know Autodesk, we're the manufacturers of CAD design software, widely known for AutoCAD, but we have more than 143 products. We make software so that our customers can make anything. We have gone through a huge business model transformation. We used to ship DVDs to our customers. We no longer do that. We give access to our software in the cloud. So all of our customers are subscription customers. And IT has been a huge part of that transformation. So looking forward to sharing some of the stories of what we have done and hearing from you guys.
Steve?
Hi, Steve Phillpott, CIO for Western Digital. Western Digital is the compilation of 3 Fortune 500 companies. Western Digital, HGST, which was the original IBM, and SanDisk. And if you take a look at those 3 companies, we have a complete storage stack. Ballpark, almost half the world's data is running on one of our devices right now.
With that, so my first question to the panelists, give us top 3 investments that you will do this year. And they have to be a growth, new technologies, not the older SAP, Oracle, Cisco's. Prakash?
Yeah, sure. So we are at any point of time, we are working with different startup companies. And taking a step back, right, I think before we talk about investments, from an Autodesk standpoint, we have declared to the world street that we are a growth company. And with comes a lot of responsibility. And being a subscription company, our focus is obsessed on the customer experience. We put customer at the center in whatever we do. So all of our priorities revolve around that whole customer experience. And the entire back office systems and the systems that integrate to provide that experience is of a huge focus. And we also have an initiative called Digitize Autodesk. And I know digitization is a buzzword. Everybody talks about that. But from our standpoint, when we say digitize, we are talking about removing friction for any users, whether it's internal employees, partners, or customers. So we are putting a lot of bets on how do we simplify processes and invest in the right areas in solving those problems and removing friction. So we have been investing a lot on automation, whether it's RPA, whether it is on AI tools, on being productive from operations standpoint, like what Aisera is doing for us, and also trying to transform our overall interaction for our employees and customers too. We have invested with a startup company called Soul Machines, which does, it's a chatbot, which also has an avatar. where when any customer reaches out, it not only solves the problem, but it also interacts based on the mood of the customer. It has empathy built into it so that the customer doesn't get frustrated. And we are talking about hundreds of thousands of interactions that the bot is able to handle. And similarly, we have leveraged technology for our employees too, where the chatbot interacts over Slack, the medium that the employees use, to solve any requests that they have or any problems that they may have. And from an operations standpoint, predicting some of those things before they happen, and a lot of investments that goes on in the security, cybersecurity space and other spaces. But a lot of focus on experience and trying to remove friction is where we are putting our bets on.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, some similar areas. Obviously, the first one for us is around analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, et cetera. Inside our company, we run a very large big data platform. That platform consumes data from all our manufacturing and engineering sites. Just to give you an example of scale, we consume about 100 trillion data points a day into that platform, and then run advanced algorithms and applications on top of that that are ballpark saving us hundreds of millions of dollars per year. So that's kind of that whole AI, ML space. The second area is around automation, and automation is a really big category. So you've got things like RPA in there, you've got things like the chat bots and stuff like that. But you also have areas like in our engineering where we do engineering simulations to simulate in software what our hardware will do. Well, we actually automated quite a bit of that to the point where recently we ran Amazon's world's largest commercial workload. It was a 1 million core workload that did that simulation, and the automation was at 8 o'clock in the morning, we kicked the button, it spun up 50,000 servers, it ran the simulations, got the results, and at 4 p.m. it turned everything off, all completely automated. So that automation area is really, really big. And the third area is kind of a bucket. You get into kind of the process, efficiency, innovation, and customer service, and we do quite a bit in those. And so that's that kind of third bucket of area.
Good. Thank you, guys. So next question is, do you guys have an innovation budget for the companies to invest every year? Or is it comes from your, you have your own kitty that you guys dip into once a year? How does it work for innovations?
Well, it's a combination of investment, but it's also a combination of carving out an area to allow people to be innovative. So for example, on our big data platform, I have an innovation lab on that. And that innovation lab is an area where anybody, not just IT, but anybody in the business can come in there. They want to try a machine learning algorithm. They want to try some analytics. They want to do a POC with a customer. Great. That's that whole innovation lab. So I think that's a big part. It doesn't always have to be, oh, here's tens of millions of dollars and, quote, go innovate. It's giving people the space to allow them to work on some of that. So I think that's one of kind of the bigger opportunities.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of having this innovation dedicated budget or having an innovation day once a year. Wake up in the morning, come to office, now today innovate, and go back tomorrow, go back to your work. I'm not a big proponent of that. I'm like fast to time value. Right. There's always like fast to time value. What do we need? In anything that we do, how do you disrupt yourself? I mean, start thinking like a founder, like if we get killed, or what can get killed from whatever we are within an organization or as a company, what do we need to do to prevent from that happening? And that's a mindset thing that individuals need to have, and not have like, okay, one day in a year we do innovation day, and then celebrate that innovation day and have a backlog that nobody follows up on, and then get back to your work is not a big fan. But I would say we always prioritize our budget investments on what business problem we are trying to solve, what value are we bringing, and how can this simplify, going back to Steve's point, whether it's process, whether it's technology simplification, or adding other things, capabilities to business is what I look into, and that's where we invest.
Good.
Yeah, no, and on the innovation side, you're exactly right around kind of so we do hackathons.
Yeah.
And when we do the hackathons, we do it in partnership with the various functional units, because then you get actually a couple benefits out of it. You get obviously the benefit of thinking about new things and how can we get to a point where we can identify a couple items that might move further into a formal proof of concept. But it also kind of gets that collaborative thinking, and innovation is actually accelerated by that collaborative thinking process.
Yeah.
I have two questions back to back, and let's see. One is continuing on your comment on hackathon. Do you do these hackathons by your teams organically? Are you willing to do these hackathons and this innovation with external partners? That's question one. The second question is, and earlier we are discussing the round table, which is to measure the value. What type of ROI you look for and how soon from this when you talk to other vendors, suppliers, etc.? Prakash?
So I would say from the first question on hackathons, it depends. In some places where it makes sense to bring partners in, if it is one of those startup companies that we have not worked before, probably not. But if it is companies that we have worked in the past, but they are trying to bring in a new capability or product, and we have a lot of success with them, then we would definitely bring. And also big enterprises too. Like we have been working with Microsoft on some co-innovation for our go-to-market to our joint customers. So we have been doing a lot of hackathons with them and Citrix Cloud and other things to get to some product called Digital Workplace. So wherever it makes sense, we'll do, but it's not like every hackathon will have some external partners to play with. It's about what is in it for Autodesk and what are we trying to do for our customers is the first focus. The second one, ROI KPIs, right? I think they are measured differently. If you look at the entire footprint, it's no more hosted solutions as much as possible, no more data centers, at least for my landscape. That's the route I'm going to. It's either cloud or SaaS and more tools. And with SaaS, there are different KPIs and ROIs you look for. And for SaaS, it's more about user adoption. How many users do we have? Because I'm a big proponent of not having shelfware. Like we purchase 100 licenses or 100 users. I want to make sure that we are consuming all of those and we are getting value out of it. And coming to cloud vendors, whether it is Amazon, Azure, or Google, whoever it is, it's all about utilization. It's not what about cost spend. It's not a cost angle. It is more about utilization. If I'm paying for $100, I'm getting value for $100, or 80 to 90% of it. I'm not wasting 60 to 70% of the resources are critical factors. So the ROIs and KPIs vary from capability to capability, or cloud providers and SaaS vendors, it all varies. But we do have measures, because our goal is, at any point of time, what is the total addressable market that we are trying to go to within our company or to customers? How do we ensure that whatever we are bringing in, because the technology is changing and new capabilities are continuously getting added, working with all of you, then that's where we are looking for. How do we ensure whoever we build those capabilities for, they are consuming them and they're getting the value?
So, so on the first one, which is talking about external partners, I'd say roughly 80% of the hackathons we do are primarily internal folks. If we do partner with a third party, it has to have an internal person that is actually sponsoring them, i.e. it's some specific technology that the third party is bringing in. Our big data platform is, we call it future-proofing, but it's basically built as containers as a service, such that any vendor can bring their capability in as long as it can run as a container, and I can run it. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to test that. On the second one, where you start getting into ROI and payback, there's a couple parts. First, when we look at ROI, savings, et cetera, there's three big buckets. There's hard savings. I invest $10, I save 20. There's soft savings. I make an investment, and it makes Bob and Jane more efficient. So instead of needing 10 people, I can now do it with 6. So soft savings. And the third one is cost avoidance. And cost avoidance is spending now so that I don't spend in the future. That's actually a big one for our analytics capability. So if you think about, and I can do it on both the flash drives or the hard drives, but let's take the hard drives. there's about 5,000 tests that go into the building of a hard drive. And when you go from an 8 terabyte drive to a 16, it actually doubles the test cost investment. And so what we're trying to do is, that's not scalable. I can't keep going from 8 to 16 to 24 to 30 and keep doubling our budget. So the advanced analytics are taking a look at how can we cut that down, which means that I'm doing stuff now that'll have its biggest payback in 2 or 3 years. So I think that's important. We always look for the quick ROI, get stuff in, big bang for the buck, but that type of stuff, in some cases, may save me $1, $2, $5 million. Some of this cost avoidance is saving me hundreds of millions of dollars. So you kind of have to balance that. Again, it kind of varies from year to year too. So as the companies go through their transformations and cycles. So.
Totally, and I agree. And also with Steve's point, right? Just to add some more thing, the CIO role usually used to be that cost control kind of how do you keep bringing savings in. That has totally changed. That's a traditional CIO typical role. I mean, there's always hygiene in us that always looks for how can we optimally use things, to Steve's point, on savings, avoidance, and other things. We naturally think in those terms, but it is more about how do we, like cost is what we pay and value is what we get, is what I tell my team. And so it's always about a value discussion working with all of you, not just how much savings can I get. There's always an element of we look that as one of the factor, but it's not always cost. Savings is not the only thing that we are looking at going forward. Is the other big change, especially if you're a transformational CIO, trying to enable your company with technology for them to bring more value. I think the whole discussion has changed.
Yeah, and you and I can probably go through each of those 3 buckets and give an example. So like on the soft savings one, we had an interesting one. One of our flash factories is lights out. It's fully automated. And some of the big data analytics that we do in that one is we actually created a digital twin. I mean, a lot of people talk about digital twin. We actually have a digital twin in production. And what it does is it actually optimizes the flow of the robots. Because you have a factory that's running 7 by 24. We can't have any of those test machines idle for a second. They have to be, working constantly. So what it does is it optimizes those robots to ensure a test machine is never. So it's more of a soft efficiency type.
Yeah, and I would say I have probably one example in the similar tone. Like for AWS usage, we use a product called Densify. So it gives recommendations to engineers for the kind of workloads on what they're trying to do. If you use these kind of services, or use this RDS, or use this ECS instances, so that you will get much more utilization and better buck for what you're paying for. In that case, we are also making sure the utilization is better, and we are using the right kind of services, because they have several services. And unless engineers are being given recommendations, they may not adopt those things. And that could be one example that I can think of. Ongoing basis, this is not a one-time thing. Right. On an ongoing basis, these recommendations are very powerful.
So I have a quick question translating to that, and then we'll open up to audience. You talk about transformation CIO. So there are 2 spectrums. Are you the Jeff Bezos risk-taker CIO? Are you a risk-aver CIO? Give me an example in the spectrum. You can only pick one.
It's easy because I'm working with Muddu, so I'm a heavy risk-taking CIO.
Sorry for you. Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, you have to take risks.
Yeah.
It's just part of the business. The words that we use, especially when I'm talking to others in the company, it's business appropriate risk.
Correct.
So there are different parts of the business that can handle different aspects of risk. But if you take 0 risk, then you go nowhere. You have to have that business appropriate risk lens on.
Totally, I completely agree.
So I can keep going. I have some more questions, but I want the audience, sir. Please.
So I think the question was really around kind of power management. We're in a world right now that is heavily focused on on energy conservation, being green. A lot of the things that we do, I can't talk about because it's actual intellectual property with a lot of our customers, but trust me, there's a lot of innovation that goes into how can you reduce the power footprint of drives inside a large data center. And again, our customers, cloud, hyperscale customers, and they're running massive data centers around the world. They are hyper-focused on power, and they don't want to use a single watt more than they have to.
Next question, folks. Gentleman back there. Right.
How do you view frontier investing? So storage, do you invest in DNA storage and things that might completely disrupt your business, but maybe don't have any kind of horizon for another 10, 20 years, or how do you view that?
So I'll answer, and then I'll turn it over. So you probably have some similar ones. And so there's timelines. There's things that we're doing like that are 10 or 15 years out. They're inside of our CTO office, and they're working. Okay, what's happening? What are we doing? But the things that are more have more in the investment are going to have a realization in the next 3 to 5 years. So that's really where the next focus is, because there's a constant evolution. We're looking, but we also have to have the next step in the 3 to 5 year time frame.
Yeah, I would say similarly, we have a concept of Horizon 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Horizon 1 is pretty much, we need it now to sustain and grow our existing business. Horizon 2 is something that can disrupt some of the things and add more incremental capabilities.
And what's the timeline on that?
And the 1 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years. And then anything closer to 5 years is what we're looking at. What are the other markets that we are talking about that we have not done today that we should get into as an expansion and other things. And CTO team drives those.
That, yeah.
What's the next question? Ma'am there.
Yeah, so today tech and innovation needs to be beyond just the tech department, cross-functional, et cetera, et cetera. So as you think about training, educating, and bringing, how do you drive innovation across the entire organization? What do you think as far as training, skilling, et cetera, is concerned?
So up-leveling and skilling is a huge investment as such across all divisions. And again, working in a software company, we were talking earlier too, it's not just tech innovation, it is more about capability expansion is how we look at it. Because we need to really look at business problems or business opportunities we are going to solve, and how technology will enable and fuel is how we look at it. Otherwise, it becomes like we found a cool technology, now let's go find a problem to solve that. And so we want to always reverse that, and especially with different business functions who are also accessible to all of you. And you guys do a great job going and talking to them directly, and then we suddenly get a surprise, we have one more tool in the enterprise landscape that we didn't know before. So our goal is to understand, whenever we're not trying to stop people from bringing in new technology, we definitely take risks, but it is also more about understanding how will that technology enable or help us, and then make a qualitative decision. And also, how can we simplify the ecosystem? Because our ecosystem is always growing with new technology. We also need to find ways, if there are some technologies that need to be divested so that it can continue to stay simpler, we'll try to continue to do that.
I'll just give one quick example, because I know we're getting light on time. But it's, again, in the area of analytics, is I'm investing to train as many people as I can in how to use advanced analytics. And part of the reason for that is, from an innovation standpoint, we don't have enough data scientists out there. And the data scientists that are out there, guess what? We're all fighting for the exact same pool. So what's happening is, from the innovation side, more and more companies kind of call it auto machine learning. They're developing tools that will automatically generate the machine learning algorithms. And then what happens is, now the data scientists move up to another tier where they can kind of validate it. But more importantly, people that aren't data scientists, developers, engineers, they can now get involved in that part of the process. Well, when you involve them, they're the ones with all the subject matter experts. And so it's really, really powerful from the long term.
So we are down to 3 more questions. We want to do a quick round, so.
You mentioned customer
Yeah, I would say one, understanding our customer is a huge thing. As I mentioned, we are a company with 143 different products. And so we were always selling it in the past. It used to be like they're interacting with 143 companies. And now we really want to put customer at the center, and all of these are capabilities and platform on how we're approaching to them. So a lot of focus is first understanding about the customer before we really go back to them and say, this is the experience we want to give it to you, or this is, and giving them more and more personalization, personalized experience. It's not like, and understanding them in a group of their peers. Just the whole consumerization, what happens at home, is what we really want to give them. Like, how do we recommend them? What are other like-minded customers who are using those products and capabilities? What are they leveraging? And what additional value that they are not tapping into today that they should tap into? And then what are the other manufacturers or providers? Because we are into design making, and after the design is done, they bring it to the real world. And who are those people that they can work with to bring it to the real world? So all of those recommendations, going back to understanding that data and converting that into insights, and mostly giving it back to those customers, because most of the time, the CIOs and the CTOs or the heads of engineering do not know how the tools are being leveraged. If we can give them insights back, this is how your organizations are leveraging our tools, and this is the value. So we are trying to spend that time on, one, understanding about the customer and letting them know, and two, how do we communicate to the customer? The entire life cycle, from the time you're trying our software to being a customer of ours, and then going to be an ongoing customer. Retention is a huge thing. What kind of experience are we giving you is the other aspect that we're trying to focus on.
Next
And that
question.
also applies to internal customers,
Totally.
i.e. the rest of the employees.
Employees
that
too.
same experience. So.
Totally.
Is there a second question? Going once, twice. Okay. Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. This is, I know it's an emerging new area, but workplace culture.
Yeah.
Do you have any innovations there? Are you investing in it? How do you even see it as investing in that sort of thing? Because it is, I guess, more along the lines of cost avoidance or soft savings. It's not quite.
Well, from a culture standpoint, the partnership on the culture standpoint that we have is with HR on the employee experience. So a big part of culture is the experience, especially as more and more in the environment, more and more of the companies are having younger and younger folks. So, within my team, I think I have 58% of my team is millennials. And so it just kind of keeps. So I think from a culture standpoint, a big part of what we're doing in 2020 is around the employee experience and how it actually helps the internal culture.
And for us, it's a top-down. Culture is super critical, especially if we have to attract talent and retain existing workforce. So it comes down from the CEO to the next level. So we define what our values are and how we operate as a company, and those are ingrained in our interview process and onboarding process. When we bring any employees, we really make sure that they are aware of it, and we also follow certain guidelines, like even during meetings. Who is the decision owner, decision-making process, courage, and other things. We really inform our employees on how to operate and give them some guidelines, because that's the key thing. Because it's not about how your employees behave when you're there, how do they behave when you're not there? And so culture is a huge element that we are focusing on.
All right, guys, we got to wrap up. I'm over time. Thank you for the wonderful panel. Both
Thank
of
you, guys.
Enjoy.
Thank you.